So this week I wanted to talk about a subject that I think is really, really important, which is old sales habits. And I'm going to give some background to this and then talk about why I think this is so important. And this podcast is definitely for anyone that's been in sales for quite some time. But if you've been looking for roles on Indeed or trying to find opportunities to do your sales work, then I wanted this podcast to be for you, because let me give you a bit of context and background as to why this is so important and why you should listen to this and why the old sales habits that you have may be getting in the way of you finding new opportunities. So I've been recruiting for a couple of the clients that I work with at the moment for salespeople that can engage over the phone. Now, the clients that I work with have a large amount of leads coming through, and what they're looking for are people to pick up the phone and have conversations with those new prospects and those leads. And me and my team at the Small Business Sales Academy, we've put together some frameworks and some documents and some materials for those people to use. But one of the things that's been really key to me when I've been talking to a couple of these people, and certainly in some of the interviews, has been how many of them have got what I would call old school habits around sales and selling. And what do I mean by old school habits? I mean, they're focused totally and utterly on the pitch, or they are focused totally and utterly on talking, or they are focused on trying to browbeat the buyer into making a decision, or they are driven totally by what they think rather than what the buyer thinks. And I'm going to be honest with you and say that if you're in sales and you have this conception and misconception of sales and selling, then I worry about your future role in sales. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be blunt and say, I think your future in sales as we move forward in the coming months and years is going to change. And there was an episode I did a few weeks back where I talked about how AI is going to be the last thing, that sales will be the last thing that I think artificial intelligence can take over, because we are, as human beings, the emotional side of who we are and the ability to connect and build relationships is the last thing that I think a robot will be able to perform to the same level as a brilliant human being can. And it will happen in time. I've no doubt it will happen, but it's going to take a while. But one of the challenges that, when I've interviewed people recently, there's this obsession with the pitch and talking and about being able to do the things that they think have worked in the past. And I get it that why this has happened. I get the fact that they're doing this. When I was in sales, when I was selling double glazing, it was all about me. It was all about our windows. It was all about getting on the phone, talking and trying to browbeat a prospect into making a decision. But I think the world has changed, and I think the buying world has changed. And if you don't change as a salesperson alongside that change, then you run the risk of just being left behind and being in a position when you're seen as a dinosaur. And we all know what happened to the dinosaurs. They became extinct. So my question and thought process to you is just be prepared to evolve your sales approach. Just be prepared to lose some of those old habits and focus on what really matters in the current sales world. And the reality is, of course, if you are trying to sell to someone that you've never spoken to before, you're going to need to be persistent. You're going to need to be thick-skinned. You're going to need to be disciplined. Of course, those elements of sales and selling are never going to change. They're the things that matter now, and they're the things that I talk to people about that are critical as we speak. But this obsession with talking and pitching and going at people, which seems to be this sort of sales method that maybe existed, the old boiler room methods from years ago, just don't work. And I've interviewed a number of people recently who, sadly, I just feel that they're stuck in those old ways and are unprepared to change. And they certainly weren't a good fit for the companies that I work with that have a service that is a very educational service. It's a mentorship program. It needs the companies involved do property, and they also do some elements around HR. They offer brilliant services, but just being in a position where you keep talking at the buyer in the hope that they're going to submit and give in and say, okay, great, because you've talked for so long, I'm gonna take you on board with what you're saying, it isn't going to work. Great salespeople, those that have emotional intelligence, ask great questions, and they also have a sales process. They know what they're trying to achieve in that call. They don't try and do sales too early. They focus on getting to understand what's really driving the person. They focus on being able to read the person effectively so they can know when a person's giving them bad signals or bad signs. They're able to take away the emotion from the sale in some cases and just have open and honest conversations. There's so many things that good salespeople do that are different to these old sort of bad habits. And I really encourage you, if you're listening to this and you've been struggling to find work in a sales role and are saying to yourself, well, why aren't I getting these opportunities? Why are people not picking me for this? I'm going to do a separate podcast on how to approach a sales interview effectively. But I do say to you this, when you get asked questions such as what's the most important traits for a salesperson to have, I would use the answer listening rather than talking. When someone talks to you about how good you are at pitching, I would be focusing on answering, I can certainly pitch when it's the right time to pitch, but my focus is on really pitching to solve a problem that the audience has rather than just pitching anything and everything. Or when someone says to you, how do you know when to stop talking? That you give an answer that is, I try and time myself to do 2 sentences before finishing off a sentence with a question. Because these are the skills that brilliant salespeople have. I've talked a lot about emotional intelligence and emotional sales intelligence. And the 5 key component factors of emotional sales intelligence are motivation, empathy, ability to build socialize and build networks, self-awareness, and then self-control. And if you're a salesperson, those last 2, an old school salesperson, those last 2, self-awareness and self-control, are so vital to you continuing to have your career in sales and to continue to do very well with it. Be self-aware. When is the buyer tuned out of you talking? When are they looking and going, I just don't want to hear this person anymore, keep nattering on at me, I'm bored, I want to get off the phone? When are they actually in a position where they're thinking about something and you've got to try and interpret what's going on in their mind? These are the skills that absolutely make a difference, certainly in service-based selling and high-value service-based selling. And if you're in low-value product sales, if you're selling a product for $30, $50, £50, then you can sometimes be in a position where someone will buy it and go, it's not a huge amount of money. But even then, if you're not careful, you'll end up creating a reputation as being this sort of angry, aggressive salesperson that just didn't talk, didn't listen, but just kept on talking. So I really want people to think through, and this podcast is a relatively short one, about habits that you have. The habits that you've got that are going to serve you well for an ongoing sales career or sales success. Or if you're a business owner and you've been taught a certain way of selling, take away some of these habits and move into some new areas. So the 4 habits I'm going to encourage you to move away from are constant talking, for 1, constant pitching, for 2. The third thing is selling too early in the process and trying to get the sale done before the other person is ready. And the 4th option is hoping and assuming that what someone says to you and reactions to you are going to basically be what they say and what they'll do. So, in other words, not reading the signals properly. And the habits I encourage you to get better at, the 4 habits I really encourage you to be really good at: asking great questions in an open way. So open questions asked, effectively. Listening to your answers, listening to the answers that someone is giving you and really listen intently to what they're saying, what their body language is saying, what they're not saying, being able to dig beneath the surface of the issue and really, with empathy, probe and find out really what's going on in the other person's mind and world, and to peel beneath the layers of the onion. But then the fourth thing is to then have that constant cadence and discipline to do sales activity on a regular basis, whether it's prospecting or phoning or video messaging or emailing. You've got to be consistent at it. So those 4 habits, so the good ones, the old ones to give up and the new ones to start, are what I encourage you to focus on if you want to be successful with sales moving forward. Buyers are bored of listening to people rabbit on for ages and ages and ages and talk about how great they are and think about things. They're bored of that. So tune yourself into your own way of listening and talking. One of the great tips I encourage people to do is to record your own sales calls. Look at your own sales calls. If you can't afford a technology like a Lego or Gong, then record your own sales calls. Stats from those 2 type of tools have shown that those people that talk less, that ask questions, that shape and direct the call in the conversation to what the outcome they want, get better results. But yet people that just do the old school habits of talking and pitching and try to browbeat their opponents as they see it. It's like as if they see their opponents. They're not your opponent, they're a buyer. There's someone that's going to work with you. But people that try and browbeat people into submission, you might get the odd person to commit to the sale. It might work in certain situations, but invariably it's going to turn people off you. It's going to make people want to ignore you. It's going to make people look at your number, come up on their phone and go, no, don't want to speak to them, because all they're going to do is push at me. And it just gives sales a bad name and bad reputation. I want to avoid that, because my big mission and vision is to try and help people see that sales isn't difficult. It's just because old school salespeople make it difficult with their approach. And that approach, unfortunately, just isn't going to work. Yes, be intrigued, be curious. Yes, get on the phone. Am I saying don't get on the phone? No, not at all. Am I saying literally, you shouldn't pick up the phone and talk to someone new? Not at all. You have to do that. But do it in a way that's going to get the right result, that's not going to make someone think, oh, you're an old school salesperson that's full of, dishonest and just self-obsessed and narcissistic and only cares what they care about and only cares about themselves. That approach isn't going to work. It's not going to get people feeling comfortable with you and your company. And if it does work, it's by luck rather than judgment. So look, that's my message for today. It's a short podcast. I want to talk about old sales habits. Just be careful about those habits, or that preconception that you've got around sales and selling. It's not what you think it is. The buyer journey has changed. So much information is now available for the buyer to access and engage before they move down a path of having a conversation with a salesperson. If you engage in the right way at the right time, you can still convince people and show to people why they should make that jump. If sales, if people were convinced about working with you, they would buy online without having to talk to you. So if you get to know them, understand, as I always talk about, the problem and desire they face, what's going on in their world, how you can make a difference, qualify them to check that they're a good fit for what you do. Give them belief that your solution can solve it, and give them evidence and show them evidence as to why they should trust you. And it's going to help you win business. But move away from those old school methods of how long you're talking for and just, literally rabbiting on for hours and hours and hours, trying to browbeat people into submission. That method of selling does not work. It certainly doesn't, in my opinion. If you think it does, by the way, put your comments in the section below. Let me know. If you think I'm talking tripe, tell me. It may be that you offer a specific type of solution or work in a specific type of industry where you think talking at your buyer more is going to be the right way forward. I'm intrigued to know what it is, but I don't think there is many industries left like that. Focus on listening, understanding, getting to really see what's going on within your buyer and reacting to who they are, reacting to the buyer and giving the right information. Short sentences, open questions, engaged audience, probing with what they're doing, understanding their reactions to things, and and adjusting your behaviour alongside it. And that's going to be a better route and a pathway to selling. It might take you a little bit longer, but you're going to enhance your reputation and you're going to do better business as a result of it. So that's my message for today. Lose the old school sales habits. They don't work. And if you think they work, then good luck. If I can't change you, convince your mind, keep on doing what you're doing, and let's see where you are in a couple of years' time. So as I always like to finish the podcast with an inspirational story, and I wanted just to do this, as this is the first podcast I've recorded since I finished my 2023 110-100 challenge, which I talked about on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we had 8 people on the 24th of June that completed the challenge. So I wanted just to say a huge congratulations to 5 people who I think did an incredible thing. Ashley McGill, Ross Sando, Jack Lane Matthews, Jasper Shanks, and also Natalie Rain, who alongside myself and David Harris, who have done the podcast before, done the 110-100 before, they completed the challenge. It was a long day, but those people are inspirational people doing, an activity that took 15 hours of exercise in the day. I applaud them. My hats go off to them for doing something they've never done before. Brilliant inspirational story. And as I mentioned, if you think, what is 110-100? Have a look. We'll put the website is www.1x10x100.com. Have a little look. See the stories of what those guys did. It's inspirational. Maybe you think you can do it for 2024. Let us know. But that's it for this week. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it's given you some inspiration with the challenge, but also some insights with regard to the bad sales habits. Give them up. They're not worth carrying on with. You need to think differently if you want to approach your career in sales and build the career you want to. Drop the bad habits, build some new ones, and let me know how you get on. See you next week. Take care.